All right. Hello, everybody, once again we had episode 42 of the podcast, our grand comeback episode. Then we had episode 42.5, the Thunder Round. Now we have episode 42.5.5.
42. I prefer 42.75 just because we want to keep ratcheting those EVA numbers up.
I'm not sure. That's not an even number.
You're an EVA number.
You work in biotech, right?
Yeah, that's right. I just throw cells at things.
You struggled with a kindergartner question right there.
Yeah. You know.
Well, anyway, we call it episode. We don't call it episode 43 because we still have our same two guests as always. I'm your main host, SPNanon, with the other main host, nmasp, also known as Kexty, on the screen. I'm not sure what that's about.
Yeah, it's only nmasp.
Our two guests here, Wibbly and Corky. Go ahead and say hi once again.
Hey, I don't know why I said hey when you said your name earlier.
Saying hi to me.
Yeah.
We're all clones of nmasp. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's true.
I'm Corky, by the way.
So yeah, we're recording this because we did not quite finish up all the testing characters in Thunder Round because we didn't do a very good job about being quick.
It was, there was much discourse to be had about Knuckles that, was the essential use of our time for that.
Ever since Shadow came in, he's kind of lost his role as Sonic's rival,
Yeah.
And now even Shadow's just been tossed to the wayside. So they just both suck.
You could literally say any word and say it's a Sonic character, and I would believe you.
Yeah, this is Juicy. This is Juicy the Bear.
There's Rotor the Walrus in the comics.
I don't even know if you're joking. So
fun facts. There's actually a Marinette and Adrian look-alike in some of the newer Sonic comics.
You're fucking.
I'm not even joking.
Well, you could have a ladybug, but that's not a mammal.
No. They're like hedgehogs or some shit like that. Hold on, I'll add this to the cast and Solitaire can edit it
later. The Sonic comics hired DeviantArt recolors to design the characters now?
How can a hedgehog look like a ladybug?
I don't know, man.
Polka dots.
Yeah, let me.
Well, anyway, so I'm glad we're starting this off super on topic.
Yeah, anyway,
we're going to finish up the testing characters. We only have a few left. We ended at Maki from Love Live last time.
Which brings
us
All right,
Solitaire, go ahead and edit that in. I'm glad they got the cat in frame.
I could kind of see it. I didn't expect to, but...
okay, so they're just background characters?
Yeah, they're just background characters.
All right, that's a little more excusable. I would just throw shit in.
Yeah, with Big the Cat just screaming in the corner.
Having an existential nightmare.
I think my favorite thing is just it's from Starbomb, and it's a song about Tails, and it's go listen to it. It's quite good. He wears Big's ass as a hat and gets addicted to PCP. It's great. It's basically a normal day in the life of Tails.
So we're going to talk. A normal day in his life is usually him sitting down on a bench.
Speaking of a normal day in the life of Tails, let's talk about Moon.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, hold on. Let's go over here for a second. So we're going to talk about the testing characters, but there's not too many of them, so we are going to fluff out this episode a little bit, give a little more content, and talk about some pre-prepared topics. And on a bit of more of a positive note, share some of our favorite things about the game and its cast. So anyway, first up is a character that was on the main roster and not updated for a long time. Moon herself from Pokemon Sun and Moon, and nmasp. You actually made the original version of this character under the name Dranky Krang.
Yeah, back in the day when I was going by Dranky Krang on Reddit. This is one of my contributions to the game.
So I know it was a little bit controversial. I'm glad you kind of brought it back and made Marinette instead, who was a lot better received. But I'm glad you had the sense to kind of hand her off and not just let her go into limbo. So Corky, go ahead and start off. What do you think of the updated Moon? She got new artwork and everything.
Yeah, the new Moon gives me really conflicting feelings because, oh my god, Phonebox came in as usual, swung his big fucking artist stick around and made some of the best posing I've ever seen. And it makes me want Moon to be really good. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. I'm crossing my fingers, though, and I hope that it does happen. It looks like Andres is kind of focusing on just kind of giving her new targets, which so far the ones I've seen are good. But I really wish he would just kind of take more of an overhaul route. It doesn't seem like he wants to do that, but I'm going to be trying like hell to convince him, because I think if we just take what Moon used to be and kind of take that same spirit and just make it good, she can be one of my new favorite characters, just because of how good this art is. And somebody brought up a really interesting post from Dranky just a couple days ago. I had no idea this was the case, but apparently Dranky made Moon to be like a parody. To be like, he basically made her on purpose to make people feel uncomfortable and like start thinking about what they were doing in the game. So like
in the tradition of like the Colbert Report,
yeah,
people just took it 100% seriously.
I mean, I totally thought he was being serious.
He attracted a lot of really awful, disgusting people who liked that sort of thing. So humanity failed him once again.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can kind of take that spirit, but just make it good and actually make it worth playing. Like find a way to explain her being crazy slutty, whether it's her being a cosplayer or maybe fucking, I don't know, Monica edited her game files. I mean, it doesn't matter. Think of something, but I think you can have a lot of fun with it. We just got to hope that Andres is willing to do it.
That is the controversial opinion alarm. Because I don't think Moon is actually doing too bad in where she's at right now, but I definitely feel like it's one of those things where if you want it to be with better character interaction, like interacting with other characters, it's kind of hard with the personality she has to kind of do that. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of, at the same time, I feel like it fills a niche that people are going to, or there's going to be people that are going to like and want, and not necessarily like I wouldn't say she's poorly made either. So I think I definitely think I agree with Corky, though, that if there was kind of some kind of, it doesn't even have to be a complete overhaul, but even if you nudge it a bit more, everything a bit more in one direction, probably open it up to make targeting a lot easier, among other things. I need to look and see some of the new targets they've been writing. But yeah, I don't know. And the artwork, as you said, is phenomenal. I love it.
I think the new targets kind of take her crazy self-centeredness and make it actually funny instead of annoying.
That's good.
She'll kind of be like, pay attention to me, but like just in a funnier way.
I think that like the new expressions add a lot in like making Moon ridiculous rather than annoying. But I'm also like I've never thought Moon was that bad. Just to be honest, not in the sense of just like, oh, this character is like fine art or whatever, but like she's there for the purpose. And it's like, honestly, the game has a lot of really, the way that I look at it is like Moon is like Jackass, right? Where it's just like you can have like a lot of really good shows on TV, like Breaking Bad and stuff in that vein, but like you can still enjoy Jackass, right? Like it's not designed to be like intellectual. It's not designed to be the thinking man's SPNatI character. They're just there to have like fun and be interesting and funny, like regardless of whether or not the thesis on parody is true or not. I honestly think that like the revisions Moon's undergone have been nothing but positive, and I do think if you change her too much, it's like, what's the point? Like, you got to keep Moon as Moon is, otherwise like you're not really adding something to the game. Like, I think that's the real hard part about updates and reworks, is like you have to keep like what made that character popular in the first place. And it's one thing if you have a character that like people aren't that enthusiastic about and you make a bunch of changes, but it's another if like you have some really big fans of a character and you kind of like take those fans out of it to try and pitch it to a broader base. That's what I think. All right, spnanon.
Yeah, spnanon.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This is definitely an improvement. I mean, Phonebox has done a great job making her a lot cuter, first of all. She doesn't look like an eldritch abomination with like an enormous inflated, piss-filled head.
Piss-filled? That's oddly specific.
her whole body is just piss. It's like inflated, and her eyes are all watery and huge and bloodshot.
Like pissing in an ocean of piss.
This is like
Piss is stored in the moon.
I could not tell you why Moon was updated. So this has been like a contentious topic among creators about like for years now, whether she should even be allowed in the game, because she's like there's no version of her that's like within age up range. So everyone was just kind of settled on, well, she can't be updated, but she's grandfathered in. And then they just decided to update her once enough people forgot about it, I guess.
That's, I think that's a little bit of a mischaracterization, to be honest. I think it's also, like, practically speaking, like, you either should take a character out of the game, which I think would make a lot of people happy for the wrong reasons, or you have to let them be updated, right? Like, I think the updates she's undergoing are, like, in the right direction, and I also I think that, like, I mean, I've been very vocal about this statement, and you're allowed to disagree with me, but it's like, people are like, oh, there's no version of Moon that's, above this age. It's just like, you don't really care. I would be very impressed if someone could articulate why that's the thing they really care about, and it's not just like, this character sucks and is in poor taste. Like, if this were an OC, nobody would bat an eye. You know what I mean? Like, it's also not like, oh yeah, Moon is this super popular character that we're just like turning into some bimp. It's not Samus, right? Like, it's not like this like character that everyone knows and likes, and it's just like, yeah, what's the slutty version of this?
And has a canon personality.
Right.
I was just trying to explain the debates. I'm not trying to like imply any particular agreement with any of those points.
Yeah, I think like, yeah, okay, that's fair, but it's just like,
I mean, we're just kind of stuck at a stalemate because of that.
Joining that stalemate was a rite of passage.
It's just like,
there was an argument every couple months.
It's just like, hey, do you want to, like, you came on to the SPNatI podcast to get away from like the Moon discourse, right? Well, fuck you. Here you go.
I mean, but it's just like, it's so weird. Every single thing that's happened to her on testing is a definitive improvement.
Right.
Like, her proportions are better. Her posing is better. Her dialogue is better. They removed a lot of like the distasteful like Pokemon fucking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I think you
apparently
could
some
go a
people
step
like
further
anyway.
with that.
They removed her pussy rot.
The what?
It's not pitch black anymore. It looked like she used to have a vagina that looked more dead than Saki's.
Oh god.
I never even noticed that.
Which now a lot of her lines about it looking worn just don't even make sense.
Well, everyone can theoretically do it.
But it legit looked like she had like necrotic flesh on the old sprite. So they got rid of that. Like, everything about it is such an improvement. I mean, the targets, adding targets, that's great. But like this is the definition of polishing a turd.
Well,
she is just so fundamentally fucking awful.
One man's trash is another man's moon. So.
It's just. I mean, I played her on a table where she didn't really target anyone. Look, artwork can't save you. Well, maybe it can, on the eyes of some people.
I think artwork.
I don't think the artwork saves it, and targets certainly cannot fucking save a bad character. All she ever does is fucking whine and complain about how she can't strip fast enough, and she makes up all this dumbass lore about how the inventory is not allowing her to do it, which is just god moding everybody else. She god modes the player and tries to like catch their cum in her mouth. Stupid.
I like that somebody had an idea recently that she should dive in front of the player so she could catch it in her mouth. I think that's really funny.
Secret Service style.
I think that's really fun.
Which is at least a little funnier, and it also removes the implication that I find her in any way attractive.
I mean, I think this is like, I think what's nice is like ultimately the takeaway from this is like, if you want to do something like weird with the character, make it funny. You know, that's
like it's not even that she's like a big exhibitionist. It's just that all she ever does the entire fucking game is bitch, moan, and complain about everyone else and how she's not the center of attention. Like, if you're gonna change anything about her personality, can you at least fucking make her supportive of other people? Like, yeah, let's all get naked. Let's have a free love, good time. You know, like all hippie style.
I think that's
like,
a really good idea. Yeah,
actually, I don't know
if a horrible bitch.
I don't know if I would enforce that per se, but I think that is like a really strong niche for a character in the future.
That alone would just make her so much better. Instead of every line being like, "Ooh, I hope this hand is good enough for me to strip. Look at my tits. Look at my tits when it's not my fucking turn. Shut up." God. So, yeah, if you're going to fix anything, can you fix her generic lines, please? So she's not like an annoying attention whore.
I think that would help. I mean,
So
even the ones that aren't whiny, there's a lot where she's kind of, as you said, just pushing for that attention. She can still do that, but I think if it's just worded in a less annoying way, it would be better. Like, give her some charm, and I know Andres can do it. Like, he's totally capable of giving characters like some likability and stuff. He's done it before.
Just make her not angry when it's not her turn, because you know what? Most of the time, it's not her fucking turn.
So, speaking of turns,
I fucking hate her.
the time is turning forward.
Turned her into a corpse.
Speaking of turns and boxes, it's now time for us to talk about Myriam. Myriam
What the fuck does turn have to do with box?
I don't know, man. I'm fucking tired.
Leave the segues to me, all right?
No.
Listen,
No,
first, okay, we spent some time talking about Moon's box, and now here's a girl who's in a box.
I just said that. Shut your fuck. Anyway, Myriam.
Yeah, Myriam from Ace Attorney, who's a girl that hides in a cardboard box the entire time. Not unlike Solid Snake. She's nearly invisible.
Oh, now I kind of wish we had Solid Snake. Damn it.
She's not as dummy thick though.
No.
She has a camera, and she like her last name is Scuttlebutt, and she likes to like sneak around and take pictures of people. I think.
Can we talk about how brilliant a name Scuttlebutt is? I just love that last name.
Myriam Scuttlebutt. It definitely, you remember it right away.
Corky, why don't you give us your lightning round minute thoughts on Myriam?
I think Myriam's got a really interesting concept. I love the box thing. The problem is when she takes off the box, I'm a little bit underwhelmed. She just needs some improvements to the model. Make me a little bit more excited to actually. Well, I guess I'm excited to see what's under the box, but when you reveal it, like, make it more of like worth the time, because it takes a long time for her to get out of the box. The good news is her dialogue has a very consistent voice throughout. If you pulled out any of her lines at random, you can pretty much tell that she's saying them, and that's always a good sign with a new character, that the writer has kind of gotten their voice down and knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I find the whole box thing adorable and endearing somewhat, but then again, I've always been big on bizarre characters and things like that. So I think the personality is pretty funny and very. I can imagine so many like interesting conversations that could come across from a lot of different aspects, be it her personality or just the whole box thing or what. Like, honestly, part of me is curious what the heck like May would have to say about and Jura about the whole box thing.
They have lines about it.
Yeah, I need to play them with her.
Mostly they remind her of she reminds them of in Vandred there's like a little naughty lowly nurse that they have. And she sneaks around and like takes pictures of people.
What?
And, yeah. she like snoops on all of their like relationship problems and stuff. And she has like a camera and she takes little notes. And her name's Pieway, so she calls it a pie check. And she just scuttles around and does that all day. And they're all annoyed by her. So that's who Myriam reminds them of.
That's fair. I was just gonna say that, yeah, definitely same thing. Model needs big update, and then after that, yeah, just focus a lot on the targets and really like milk out those interesting conversation possibilities that you have available to you.
Just get creative with how you want to censor those breasts of hers. Just go nuts.
Just put boxes on it.
Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, good. No, I was done.
Yeah, kind of echoing what, like, I like weirdo characters too, but I really do think the art needs some substantial work just to kind of make her a little bit more attractive. I think, like, the cardboard box thing is interesting, and I think the personality is like almost there, but I don't know. I think there's like I think there just kind of needs to be a little bit more oomph to it. I think the lines are really just great, and that's like the hard part. but I'm still like with Myriam. I don't really get a sense of, like, why I would want to play with this character, if that makes sense. So something that just like adds some distinction to her and something that gives her a reason for other characters to engage with her beyond like the obvious of being in a box, I think would really help a lot. I think she's a really strong first pass. I just think she needs kind of a little bit more TLC to really get there.
I agree. Like, she's not there yet.
Yeah.
Especially when she takes off the box. She has like very default Kisake proportions. Like, her hair is all default, stubby legs, big head, all the works. But he is working on updating her model, and it's like better proportions. You know, the hair is better, face is cuter, because she is definitely like kind of cute in the source. She almost looks like Juri Han.
Huh.
So like, I'm all for that. Like, you should almost like take cues from how Metal Etar did Juri's face. I don't have a link to the model, but I could find it. It's like in the dev server if you scroll up in her channel. So
there's a lot of cosplay of this character.
Yeah, so Solitaire can edit that in.
Should be really fun to cosplay.
Yeah.
He even made like her box better and like more detailed with like less
that would be good.
artifacting.
Yeah.
It looks pretty blurry right now. But a lot of her poses are like taken straight from the source material and everything. But yeah, she's got a really strong voice. You can tell it's her. I think he should probably measure his expectations a little bit, because how often are people going to pick a girl who's in a box and stays in a box for a very long time in a jerk-off game? But
You might be surprised. I mean, when I see someone in a box, I'm like, who? What? I mean, we get there's a lot of people who like pick characters like that just make them think, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, but she's definitely like super cute overall, and she's like standoffish with people. She's ready to argue, which always creates a lot of fun banter. I've had fun talking with her so far. She calls Jura old.
That's great.
The new model looks a lot better already.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where she goes. She can definitely pull it off. Just needs to really upgrade that art, and everything else should come pretty naturally.
Okay.
I think this actually isn't this guy's first effort. He first tried to make like Callisto from Ace Attorney, who was like another obscure Ace Attorney character, because all we fucking get is obscure Ace Attorney characters instead of the real ones.
It's like each franchise has their own kind of like expectations. It's like DDLC never gets Yuri.
Yeah.
You know,
Fire Emblem gets fucking everybody.
Fire Emblem exists in perpetuity.
Ruby gets everybody, but they're all terrible, except for a few of them. Ace Attorney gets all the obscure characters. Pokemon for a long time was stuck with nothing but Moon and Old Misty.
Yeah.
And then there's an explosion.
In the beginning, there was an explosion.
Distant Megumin.
And then I had to wipe my dick off.
If only we had B.
All right.
Dude, B is just fucking Zoomer Maylene.
Who?
B is Bay. I don't care what you say.
The best Pokemon girl is Claire.
Who?
Who?
Claire from a fucking Gen 2. Dragon type gym leader. Lance's cousin. It's the one that bitches and won't give you a badge at first.
Oh, you just like her because she looks like Maya. Get the fuck out of here.
She's got tight clothes and blue hair, and she's serious.
She is literally Maya, but Pokemon. It's literally what she is.
No, Maya's actually good at what she does.
Oh.
Okay, so
you and your Pajama Sam characters.
So that's
Corky. How long are you going to try to force this meme?
It's an acceptable meme.
No, it's not.
It's only not acceptable to you because
speaking of blue, like the sea from which the ancient god Neptune is from, we're going to talk about Neptune now.
Speaking of gamers,
what?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, not so easy, is it?
You messed me up. You're messing up my rhythm, man. Who put you in charge of fucking segues?
Get good. Fucking play Sekiro.
What?
All right. So, yeah, Corky, what do you think about Neptune?
Neptune from Hyperdimension Neptunia, by the way, who is apparently pretty popular. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about it
games,
either, but I know
what is it? Is it like Tuhu kind of thing?
Yeah,
I think it's games.
It's got like a fandom, and I feel like that makes me think of Toho.
So people definitely wanted characters from it.
Yeah.
So it's really rare that a new creator comes in and raises the bar on their own. And I definitely think that Nutty's done that with Neptune.
Yeah.
Like, holy hell, like, it's been a journey watching him, like, gradually work on this model over the last few months. He's been so good at, like, receiving feedback and working with people, and he just has such a great attitude. I just loved seeing Neptune's development, and I was so excited when she got on testing. Just this model, I'll post it when I'm done talking because I can't talk and look at models at the same time. But it's just one of the most impressive models I've ever seen. She might have the best art in the game. You'd be hard pressed to find a better model.
I don't know. Best art overall, best model.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's just insane. I mean, I think he combines like 2 or 3 different models like in Gisuke together to get this Neptune model. That's how like crazy he went with it. I mean, he went all out, and he's already working on an alternate skin where he's basically putting in every single gradient and shadow and everything you can think of into it. It's insane. Anyway, so he should definitely be applauded for that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I really noticed about her writing already is that she does a good job of explaining herself and her world in a natural way. She never asks like, "Oh, you're asking about this? Well, let me explain it." She just talks about it, and it sounds really natural. I'd like to see more of it, and she's pretty new on testing tables, so she doesn't have a whole lot of lines yet, and I'm sure this will get better as more lines get written. But the only thing is, like, I play with her and I learn about her because she does talk about herself, which is good. But I still don't know if she's a game console or what she like. I'm still really confused as to what
I think they're all like personified imaginary game consoles.
Yeah, they're like goddesses.
Well, I
of
thought that
the
too,
game
but
console or something.
So originally, you know how Sega in the 90s named like the Saturn. There was originally going to be like the Neptune as well.
Oh.
So that's the idea. There's like the Neptune and then like Nep Gear, which is like the Game Gear. So
well,
I
here's
think
the thing that confused me.
I think it's like Hitalia, except in like instead of countries, it's like imaginary game consoles.
Yeah.
I think there's like a PlayStation 1 and everything.
Well, what confused me, I think it was Supernova. It was Neptune's targets towards one of the other testing characters. I think it was Supernova. And they asked Neptune if she was a game console, and Neptune said no. So
well,
that's
no, because she's a goddess of one, I think.
It's not like Shimakaze where she literally thinks she's the game console.
Right.
Okay.
It's
Anyway,
an allegory, It's like Animal Farm. It's on that level.
I just left it a little bit confused, so it'll be helpful
That's
when
fair.
she's got more lines explaining things, and I can.
It's the tragedy of Darth Sega the Wise.
I guess I can't really not watch the show and complain that I don't know who she is, but
It's not a show.
well, whatever it is.
Is it not a show in
It's
any
a
way?
video game series.
Oh,
I guess, but I've seen
an
her like
it's an
animated. Are
RPG.
those just cutscenes?
I thought
I
it was an
think so.
anime.
No, they might have an anime, I think, but it's originally and has most of its content as a video game series, I think. They might have a manga series. I could be wrong on some of these things.
Do they like only come out in Japan or something?
For the most part. I mean, they have. I think you can find it here, but I don't think it's like broadly advertised here.
Oh, before you start, can I just?
Yeah.
I want to correct Corky real quick. You said like a couple months. To be fair, I think he's been working on Neptune's model for like a year and a half.
Oh, it's been more than a couple months. Yeah, you're right.
He started in like December 2018, and does it show?
Or I just try not to, make it sound too long in case any new developers are listening and think, oh God, do I have to spend 2 years on one character?
I think he
No.
took a long break in somewhere in there. But yeah, it doesn't literally take 2 years to make a character that good, but does it show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, on top of all that, I just really like, on top of all that, the personality is fun. It's got very clever kind of jokes and funny kind-ish dialogue in there. It's kind of very whimsical character. I enjoy it a lot. It's fun targeting her.
Yeah, kind of doubling down on whatever's come before really is I think Neptune's art is fantastic, and it's awesome when you see a creator kind of come out of nowhere, spend all this time working on the character, and then have them release. Like a lot of the times you'll hear like, I'm gonna make this character, and then nothing happens. But like, damn dude, this is some commitment. This is awesome. I think I think she's really delightful. There's a lot of like stupid gaming meme shit. She's just like, oh, I would shave my pussy, but it takes time away from like playing video games. It's just like, wow.
I don't have enough XP for this hand.
It's just like stupid shit like that. But it's like it's so good and it's so endearing. And
let's try entering the Konami code.
I think like the big thing that I found issue with for her is like her generic like stripping lines for herself are like super just like, and now I'm gonna take off my shoes. Like she has all this character when she's talking about literally anything else but herself. But when it comes to herself and like things that she's doing, it's never. I don't know. I found those lines to be very uninteresting, and really that has to be where you carry the character. So I think if you want to take some time and really inject a little bit more life into those, Neptune would just be great. Like she's really good right now, but I think that's the really glaring and easy to fix thing that I saw.
Yeah, like that's when your character is in the spotlight.
Yeah,
like, you have to make those lines good and put a lot of personality in there. I mean, her poses in there are great. She does. Yeah. I mean, it's not just her model that's good. Her poses are genuinely pretty good most of the time. He adds like a lot of cool detailing when like her breasts are supposed to be bouncing, or when like the bra is like half off or something like that.
There's so much detail.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, her art is amazing. I'm okay. I know you made Futaba, so I guess you're a little more okay with like the gremlin fucking gamer meme shit.
Yeah, I'm very okay with that. So it's just like, yep.
That doesn't appeal to me too much. It kind of turns me off from it a little bit.
But that's like a matter of taste, right? Like the thing that I like and the thing you dislike, those could be the same thing. It just isn't executed well.
Where I can make a little more objective criticism there, though, is she seems almost so focused on that sometimes, combined with her appearance and the fact that like she doesn't talk because those like self-stripping lines are a little, kind of mundane. It almost seems like he's kind of dancing around the idea of like sexuality with her. Like she doesn't really show too much sexual interest in other characters. It's like it's all jokes. You know what I mean? Like she keeps up the memeing stuff the entire time, which kind of makes her almost feel kind of young, like a kid who's just joking about stuff.
She does look a little bit young. That's the one thing that worries me about her model.
And I think I'd be okay with her appearance if she acted a little more adult-like with sexual elements, or like the other way around. Like you kind of need both of those things,
Yeah.
And I think she doesn't quite have that yet. You got to turn off the memes at some point and show a little bit. You got to have her crack a little bit. And show some other aspect of her personality, I think, if you want to sell her as, more adult that can handle a game like this. So that's the only thing.
Yeah, generally speaking, like, it's very rare that, like, if someone's telling you to make your character hornier on this particular podcast, it's very rare, like, considering how much, like, in the context of, for instance, Moon being like, oh, this is too much, if someone's telling you, like, hey, could you crank this up a little bit, I don't ever think that's really a bad thing. And I think like it's great. Like honestly, like I do kind of agree with that feedback. I think that's really
like it's not that Moon talks about sexual things. You're supposed to. It's that she's fucking obnoxious about it.
Sure.
So yeah, like you got to have both sides of the character like that. You can't shy away from that part of the game.
I don't think he's trying. I don't think Nutty is trying to though. I just think it's kind of like a consequence. But
yeah, you got to go a little harder. Like some of her poses and facial expressions, like in the forfeit stage, is pretty good. It's just the dialogue has to match.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. If someone has the composure to like keep making these like really like well crafted like gamer jokes as she's like doing the forfeit, it kind of makes it seem like she's not really that into it.
Mm-hmm. So being, I guess, potentially interpreted as they're very kind of comfortable with it, so it doesn't really faze them, maybe? I don't know.
Oh yeah. Corky just posted her whip skin where she transforms into like her goddess form that can like float and shit, where she does look more adult, but okay. I think this is partially my fault. He spent like weeks working on this shit now and giving it just as much detail as before. It's literally because in our DMs and in target stuff, like she kept targeting Jura, and Jura just kept blowing her off as like this dumb kid. It's like, you're not a goddess. Shut up. So now she like he's like,
well fuck you, I'll show you.
She really wants to prove her wrong and just transform right in front of her.
That's pretty good.
So Nutty was just like, well, I guess I got to do this now.
That's commitment. You like to see when someone goes kind of the distance.
Honestly, he should put this shit on a resume. Hard worker.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Good work ethic. Hire this man. He is detail oriented.
This is a tangent, but it's like really like it's nice that SPNatI is not something you can use for registry like resume building, but it is kind of fun that like
fucking witness me.
But like it's like like if someone's like, hey, like why do you want to hire like Viz or like RC or something like that, I'd just be like, I have my reasons, and then just like fucking pass that resume through. Like I don't know. It's
dealt with a bunch of horny nerds that are all squabbling with each other.
Completely unironically, it's just like I ran like a company for a little while, sort of thing, and it was less like involved than like dealing with some people's histrionics over like, what do you mean we're doing culling of these things? So I don't know. I think there's a time and a place for just about all this shit. But good job, dude. Good job, Nutty.
Yeah. No, amazing job.
Let's talk about SPNanon. Why don't you do the transition for this one? Because you seem very confident about it, and I'm not going to throw you off your game.
Shit. I'm in the hot.
Yeah.
Ugh. What is similar between Neptune and Pyrrha? Well, Neptune is well, you see she's a goddess, so she transcends the mortal realm, and Pyrrha is dead. So let's go ahead and talk about Pyrrha.
Yeah.
Who was from Ruby. And she briefly appeared on the testing tables like in summer of 2018.
She actually made it all the way to like sponsorship.
Yeah, and she failed it.
I think that's.
And I'm partially responsible for that. But yeah, BB made who made the other rubies made his grand return, and did the writing for her. And SNS Chase I think did her original model, which she still has. Now she's coming back. She's being taken over by Cavendish, who's who's doing her writing, and I think he's now upgrading her model too. I don't know if someone else is doing that, but she's back. So, Corky, you ready to go?
So, playing Pyrrha, I didn't know who she was coming in when I played her, and I still know nothing about her. So, it might have something to do with her being one of the last ones I was testing. It was really late at night, so I didn't have a whole lot of energy to like focus a crap ton on what she was saying. So part of that's on me. But I do think she is kind of suffering a little bit from not talking about herself enough and not really explaining who she is. Also, maybe I need to just watch more anime or something because I don't know any of these characters. But,
Ruby's not an anime. It's an American anime.
Whatever. Point is, there's a lot of people that play SPNatI. Most people probably aren't going to know who a lot of these like characters are. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe most people know who Pyrrha is, but I'm assuming a lot of people are not going to know. So you also have to kind of accommodate those who don't know who she is. The new model is looking really great in all things except one. I've spoken about this to the guy who's working on it, so he's well aware, but I think the eyes just aren't, they're just not doing it. Like the new model is objectively better than the old one, but I still find it less appealing, and the only reason is because of the eyes. Even though the eyes were not very accurate in the old model, they were just a lot cuter and a lot more appealing. So I think this is a really good example of maybe focusing too much on trying to hit the reference one-to-one and not looking at what actually looks good in Kisake. So once those eyes are fixed up, I think she's going to look perfect, model-wise. I think she's going to look really good. And then, writing-wise, just kind of shore up, help us know a little bit more about her. Just, get a little bit more creative with what she talks about.
Yeah, with Pyrrha, first off, I have to say, Cavendish, who was working on her, I really like how when he was writing targets to me and stuff like that, I noticed that after I explained things about the Mega Man to him, he wrote targets in a way that would set things up so purposefully so that Megman would have something to say about it almost, and like would have a comical response to it. Like it was kind of like playing back and forth between the characters in a way. It was actually a lot of fun to work with, and I think the dialogue with Pyrrha can be pretty fun. In general, I do think she definitely could use maybe a bit of a art update. It's hard because I know Ruby being that kind of 3D style that's kind of simpler. The source is kind of a bit of a simpler design, but yeah, I think maybe a small update with the art and touch up some things, and just stay on top of the targets as usual. That's always my top advice. But some of the dialogue has been fun reading through and responding. She's almost like the over-caring, almost motherly in a way, but not in an overbearing way. So it's kind of fun. You can still like yank her chain around, but she won't like get too flustered. So it's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Pyrrha to me when she first came out had like a lot of so what when she first hit tests. I think it's gotten better, but I personally still struggle a little bit with like what her deal is. Like I've watched Ruby. I know roughly what Pyrrha's whole arc is about. But
you made Coco.
I did make Coco. Wow,
you should really update her.
I'm not going to do that.
Why not?
I don't.
Is it because she got jossed into being a lesbian?
No, I just don't want to work on a lot of characters anymore.
That's fair.
I just have I have like 10 fucking characters in this game. Like it's just too many.
You're quickly trying to like jettison them all from the nmasp, the SS nmasp.
If they didn't, if you didn't make it to the top 15, you get fucking cut. You cut from the roster.
Going overboard.
Yeah, get yeeted. No, but I think Pyrrha's I think Cavendish is trying some new stuff with Pyrrha, which is great. And I think the revised dialogue's been like really beneficial. She has a lot more character and a lot more things you can hook into. We'll talk about this a little later about like what you can do as a creator to like encourage other people to target your characters. But I still think that like the problem with Pyrrha is like she's really relevant to people that like Ruby, but for other characters from other franchises, I think she needs to be a little bit more outgoing and inquisitive to engage them. That's really only my complaint is like I think like if Pyrrha had more reach to other people and some more hooks to her, it would be a lot easier to engage with her further. I think it's going in the right direction. I just don't know what kind of concrete advice I could give.
So before Cavendish did some generic revisions, he targeted a few more characters with her, and one of those that he just lavished with targets is Maya herself. Uh-huh. So if you want to know the number one way to like endear me to you and your waifu, it's to target Maya and to target her a lot. So I'm definitely excited to see where this project goes, and he's been really attentive and throwing a lot of updates out there. I agree that she's not quite there yet. The funny thing is, like what you just said, Corky, about like her being kind of bland and just kind of not having much to say for herself and not teaching you much about herself. That was pretty much the initial criticism that she received and why she didn't make it through sponsorship. And it's not as bad now. She's just not there yet. He still needs to keep revising her generic dialogue, and I think he intends to do that. So I'm still hopeful. And I definitely, in my test playthrough, I did get more out of her than I did before. It's just that at the time, the criticism was, like she needs to talk more about herself because otherwise this is a character literally only for people who know her from Ruby. And that's just not enough when we already have like 5 Ruby characters on the roster, you know? But she's getting there, and I think he's doing a better job. Like just from the test playthrough, I learned that she's like a celebrity and stuff, but she doesn't want people to know that. So we're getting there. She's getting more flavor. I think she still talks about the game a little too much, but she's definitely on the right track. The one problem with her is kind of like there's interesting things about her. Like she's like a star student, and she does like endorsements, and she's like a big celebrity. She's won all these tournaments. But the whole deal is that like she doesn't want all the publicity. Like, she doesn't want people to know that, so she doesn't talk about it, which makes it really hard for her to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've ever been evasive and not talked about your interests in real life with people, you are very boring.
So there's this porn game that I moderate. First thing, at a work function, what you do is introduce, I've written like 20,000 lines of pornography for this character from this obscure anime called Vandred. What did you do? What did you do with the summers of 2018, 2019? Oh, you went and worked out? Well, you studied the row machine.
Studied the blade.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, that's how you make friends, is just by being honest,
vulnerable and being honest, yeah.
And divulging secrets.
And actually, there's going to be some stuff I'm going to cover along those lines when talking about the writer's tips stuff later.
Yeah, but that's just a tight balance to have. I'm not sure how you strike that where she doesn't want to talk about the most interesting things about herself.
Just wait for her tits to be out, and then she can be like, "Well, I got nothing to hide, so I like to fantasize about all the guys in class."
You can't wait until the end of the game to be interesting.
I don't fucking know.
I'm going to stop reading her dialogue way before that.
I don't know. Anyway, all good points, but
she is supposed to be like a huge Amazon of a girl who's like 6 feet tall. You could do some like sexual stuff like that. Like, ooh, I love towering over men.
Ara, Jean-kun.
Give me something to chew on, baby.
Woo!
All right, so
ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on to Supernova, aka Stella.
So from a character that we know nothing about to a character that you literally can't know anything about because she's an original character.
That was good. Good intro.
I told you I'm good at this.
Yeah, not bad.
Anyway, she happens to be a space Nazi, as you can see by the 5-pointed swastika around her neck.
God. No.
Hitler has invaded the space future. This is like Wolfenstein and Doom are meeting.
In all seriousness, Stella is not quite from the Fifth Reich.
Not quite.
Yeah, she's like her superhero. She's like a superhero, and her superhero name is Supernova.
She's from something, right?
But she's also called Stella.
She's from a. Actually, wait.
She's from like a webcomic that the creator made.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an OC.
That's cool.
But her big thing is that she can make portals and go to like other realities. So Corky, lay it on us.
Yeah, so normally when a new character comes in talking about making an OC, I kind of do like a little eye roll thing because I'm just not like super interested in OCs, and maybe that sounds kind of silly as the guy who doesn't know who anybody is. I guess you could really argue that anybody is an OC to me, but I don't know. There's just I think the reason I don't like OCs is because generally we are amateurs when it comes to writing and making characters. When somebody makes like Yunyun and Konosuba, like Yunyun was designed by a creative team that are all experienced writers, character designers, all that stuff. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. So like they know how to make good characters. So when you make a character that's existing, it kind of fills in for a lot of that knowledge that we don't have or the experience that we don't have. So it's almost like taking a shortcut because you can kind of just copy what they're doing. And if you do it right, chances are you got a good character. If you're doing an OC, you got to do all that work on your own. So long story short, it's a lot harder to make an OC. And when new creators come in, they got their work cut out for them. So, but the good news is with Nova is she's actually got some interesting potential. When I play her, I'm actually like, okay, like she's holding my interest. I'm not just, glazing over her lines when she's got them. She's got some really good potential. So I'm really excited to see where she goes. Right now, she's been really fun to target. I've been throwing some targets her way with Emmy, and that's been a lot of fun. I think Nova's developer really excels writing targets. I think just because like he kind of knows what to actually talk about. The generics are kind of where her weak point is. I think she talks way too much about the actual game and how her hand is. It's a common problem with new developers. It's something that I did when I started too. So.
Oh yeah.
The posing, I think, also needs some work. The model has gone through some crazy improvements. She looks a lot better than she started. I think there's still some room to grow there. Like it doesn't need to be changed right away, but I think before she's put on the main roster, there's some small improvements that would help her. but posing for sure needs to be improved. She's just not very expressive. Her posing isn't really that interesting to me, and a lot of her poses don't really convey any emotion. Like, I'm not sure what they're supposed to mean.
Yeah, I'd agree. She's pretty. I think it's probably part of it probably stems from the character. I get the sense that she's kind of just a very chill, laid back character. It does kind of translate to a little more flat expressiveness at times, but I think the model is definitely like for kind of first time character. It's not in a bad spot, so that's good. And like, there's always room for improvement, but I think it's a good base. I think dialogue is still could some areas could use a little bit of a touch up, but once again, like, it's a good base. It's where it is a good start with all that stuff. So honestly, I just keep experimenting with it, and I might be able to come up with, I think, something more solid to say once I see a bit more done, but overall, I think it's a good path.
I think, I'm very much on the same page as, everything that's already been said. I think progress is progress. Like, Supernova's, like, initial steps were really basic, but I think, her writer does a really good job, like, taking feedback into account and doing development. So I think there's a lot of potential here, and I'm excited to see where you can go. I actually have the kind of opposite, where I like a lot of the OCs in SPNatI, and we'll be talking about one of them later, but I do think that part of writing...
Amy is only half an OC.
Sorry?
Amy is only half an OC. Come on.
It's like being half elf. It's the half that matters. But yeah, I think this is like good progress. Keep it up, dude. Just listen to feedback, keep working on it, and I think you'll get there. Like, I think there's the making of greatness in this character. But I guess with me, it's like my biggest thing is just like, I wish that she kind of did some weirder stuff. And it's also like, if she can teleport anywhere, I think she'd have like a lot of interesting conversations to have. Like, oh, what's the food like in some of the places you've gone? What do you like to drink? What are some interesting things you found? Like, she makes this comment one time. It's just like, oh, well, getting naked's not that weird because some worlds just don't have clothes, or something to that effect. And it's like, I think that's like good characterization, and you just need to lean more into that with like sensible but off the wall kind of stuff.
I think there's one thing that disappointed me with that when I was targeting her with Emmy, because I noticed the same thing. She has a lot to say about other worlds, but when I had, when Emmy was asking her questions like, hey, what's your favorite place in the world? You can go anywhere. Like, if you've been to Egypt and stuff, she kind of gave the impression like, well, I've been to so many places, they're all just boring to me now, which kind of makes some sense, but it's also kind of disappointing because, like, I'd love to hear her be like, I've seen everything, but this one really stood out to me. Like, I've seen everything and this was still cool. Like, I'd love for her to just kind of still have some kind of, even if it might, like, make sense for her to be jaded from seeing everything, I'd still like to see her show some actual interest and passion in just a couple things. It would kind of help give her a little bit more character, I think.
Fair.
You don't really want your original character to just be bored with everything that's happening. I kind of had the same reaction, or have the same reaction that you do, Corky, when I hear about, I'm going to make my OC. It's like, what are the chances that they're actually going to go through with this? And then even further, what are the chances that it's actually going to be any good? Because, everyone, seems like every other new creator comes up, it's like, oh, I'm thinking of making my OC. It's like, yeah, okay. This isn't really what the game's about. So, I mean, you can give it a shot. I mean, I was kind of rolling my eyes when she first joined because her model is like much, much better now. She used to like literally look like default Chan when she first came on the tables. But I was impressed. Her creator legitimately put in some effort and like actually made her super cute now. Mm-hmm. And she's got a lot of like cool details. I mean, obviously we don't have a source material to compare it to, but she does look unique. And yeah. I mean, no offense to the other OCs, but she might honestly be like the cutest looking original character we have. I think she's up there anyway. Mm-hmm. I know nmasp might disagree and say Amy, just because he wants to pull on her twin braids.
I can't dispute this. Like, I don't know what you want from me, dude. I literally can't not
Supernova legitimately is cute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, her dialogue isn't quite there yet. She again had that problem early on where it's just like, oh, you're stripping. Oh, it's my turn. Whatever. And just kind of, blithely accepting everything. She is starting to get better about that and, having lines about like, oh, all these other worlds. I just think she needs more of that. She also needs more generic lines in general. Like I saw her repeating herself a lot. And there's also lines that are really just kind of inexcusable for an original character. She has a line that like says like, oh, I wonder what the professor would think about this hand. It's like, dude, literally nobody knows who that is. Like literally nobody.
It's the professor's the player character, right? According to Bernie.
You gotta have context for that.
The play once condition is your friend. I use it often.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not there yet, kind of like Pyrrha, but I think she's on the right track. And like one of the things that he recently brought up is that he was thinking of like having an epilogue for her where she would like go to all these characters' different worlds, like other characters in SPNatI, like visiting Mei and Jura's ship, for instance. And that is really what he needs to like hammer home with like the whole like dimension hopping thing.
Yeah.
Like she should totally do that. Like I hate to be rude about this, but you should almost kind of like know your place as an OC and just be like, you were like the sauce that like improves every other character, and highlights them. And she can talk about, oh, I've been to all these different worlds, and she can like do the Shimakaze thing where she like brings up, oh, I've seen this character before, and it's like a character that's also in the game, but like just not at that table.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I didn't think
and you
of
just
that.
bring up all this shit that other characters can't talk about, and you should totally just highlight this sort of stuff.
Oh my god, that's actually, now that you mentioned that, I think that could actually be really cool, like talking about other players, about the characters, about their worlds, as if she's been there and visited them. That could be really cool.
I'm just picturing a character like mentioning their friend and Nova just being like, oh yeah, I talked to them yesterday.
Yeah, that could actually be interesting. That's a really good idea, spnanon.
Yeah, so she just needs to highlight the other cast a little bit more, and I think she'd be in a good place.
One last thing about Nova. She's got this like animated pose when she enters the game where she like opens a portal and walks through it. So I really liked Ninja Monkey's like, initiative to like try something like that. I think it was a decent idea. It's just the execution of it doesn't do it for me. It's like way too smooth of an animation because like most characters aren't just animated all the time. It just looks really awkward to me. I think it would be better if it was more like visual novel style where the portal opens, she just kind of slides through it instead of trying to do like a complex animation for it.
She could honestly, like, you could achieve the same effect, but have fewer frames of animation. Just have it open above her, and she just kind of falls through it and lands.
Yeah, that would work. I think that would look a lot better.
It'd be more natural.
It's up like an elevator.
It just kind of scans her in.
Supernova is like a ladder. Like chaos.
It'd be cool if she would just like pop in a portal and take like the what's the word for the like an item that's part of the story?
A dildo.
MacGuffin.
No, MacGuffin. Thank you. Yeah.
Take wait, that was actually it. I was joking.
Plot coupon.
No, yeah. If she just like went into like like when Amy Rose is playing, she comes and is like, "Hey, let me go grab a cosmic or a chaos emerald." Yeah, or like she goes into.
Corky admitted yesterday that he does not know Sonic lore.
Yeah,
and I educated him as best I could.
I'm still like not. I'm pretty sure that half of that was just made up, but
no, none of it was. Okay, so we do need to move on
to Yunyun.
Right. So wait, I got to do my segue here.
No. The segue here is basically it's just like, oh, we can move on entirely. Nobody likes Yunyun.
So here's the thing. So supernovas are pretty big, and so are Yunyun's tits.
I liked mine better. Mine was better. Anyway, let's talk about Yunyun. So, Yunyun is from Konosuba. She's like one of the B characters, not one of the main casts.
Megumin's rival.
Megumin's
in the same clan.
Rival in quotations. But okay, so Corky, why don't you start us off talking about Yunyun?
Well, the good news with Yunyun is that
she has no friends, by the way.
That is good news that she has no friends. I don't really have a whole lot of critiques for her, so that's a super good sign for a new character on testing. I think Yunyun's been written by Stewart. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And I think Napsu as well.
Yeah, I think Stuart and Napsu just hot potatoing who has to write Yunyun until the project's done. Based on
both of them are doing a fantastic job. She was the last one I played with. It was super late at night. I was exhausted, and she was still standing out, and I was still having a great time reading her dialogue. And that's just a really good sign. She's fucking useless, as she should be. I just loved, like, every line of dialogue she had was interesting. Like, every single one I read just said a lot about her character, and it's just, I don't know how, I didn't know that Napsu was writing this character, and that makes a lot of sense, because she's really good at taking nothing and making it something. I mean, that's basically what Amy is.
I think Napsu is focusing a lot on some of the forfeit lines and some other things as well.
Gotcha. Well, Stewart's got a similar talent, too. They're both just so good at just exploring a character, just like packing so much character into so little with just like, you know, what lines of dialogue we have for SPNatI. It's really hard to do, and they're both really good at it. The art is really good too. I really just I can't find a fault with this character. I mean, other than like, you know, being new and like, you know, like, oh, it needs more lines, more targets. Like, no shit, it's a testing character. So,
well, she does have missing poses in her forfeits sometimes.
Okay.
That's a fault.
I don't know if she even lost it. I think she won the game I played, so I didn't even see the
Don't turn invisible.
But anyway, what's there is really good. I'm super excited to see more. And I never thought I would say that for, like, I've seen Konosuba. It's one of the few, like, animes I've actually seen, so I actually know who this character is. I never would have, like, I never watched that show and thought, man, this is a character that should be in SPNatI. But here she is in SPNatI, and she's really good. I mean, you know, shocked me. I didn't, you know, I didn't think she was going to be bad, but I didn't think I was going to like her as much as I did.
Yeah, no, I think first.
Oh yeah, as the writer of Megamine, what do you think?
Yeah, first off, I think it's great. I'm so happy that Stuart was the one who decided to do Yunyun, because him going from Tomoko to Yunyun, like, he's just showing he's very good at writing pathetic characters in a way that's fun.
God, that's such a backhanded compliment.
No, it's the best
you're not wrong.
compliment.
Well, hey, you know, write what you know.
Yeah. No, but it's like, no, because I adore those two characters, especially like in like SPNatI, like, and it's very like Tomoko is up there with some of my favorites, and so yeah, I really need to get to responding to the targets for Yunyun and getting the ball rolling with that. I think I was just a little thrown off at first by the kind of hot potatoing, but yeah, other than that, I don't have too much to say either, besides as long as the character makes me feel bad about them while playing it, then it's perfect.
I found a critique. I finally found a critique. I do think her posing could be better. I'm looking through her images right now, and they're a little bit strange, but that's, you know, not the hardest thing to fix.
I mean, I think it's kind of it's yeah.
She's pretty expressive. Like, you can tell what emotion.
Yeah, I like the posing.
She's expressive, just like some of the poses are just a little bit awkward. Like, easy fixes, honestly. Like, none of the poses need to be scrapped. Just some of them just needs a couple adjustments to make them look a little bit more natural. Like, this one, like, it looks like she's doing an awkward pose, but it's just, some things are just, you know, a lot of the poses are just like 2 seconds away from being great. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think I'll disagree with that. I think the posing's fine. Like,
nmasp, you made Marinette's original poses.
You know, God, it was a different time.
Where she's doing like some kind of interpretive dance.
I'm trying.
I mean, I'm comparing them to like Phone Box, so maybe I'm not being fair, but
I'm trying to make it better. But anyway, with Yunyun, I think Yunyun's cute. I think that like Stuart Napsu and Horse Killer is like not the combo I would have expected, but it works pretty good.
I actually did a little bit of some of the original posing, then Horse Killer took over and redid some of them.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I think Yunyun's one of those characters where it's like, it seems like the people working on the project are not necessarily that invested in it, but I hope they just kind of get her live and she just lives on the live roster. And that's kind of all. That's really like, that's fine. I think like not every character needs to be, you know, Amy and Natsuki and, you know, Megumin and Emmy. So, yeah, we'll see. That's it. Yeah, that's all I got.
I mean, I agree. She avoids the sort of generic dialogue problem that a lot of testing characters have. Like, I played her and I immediately got what her deal is. You know? Like, she doesn't have any friends. She is desperate for attention and approval. And she makes completely, like, pathetic and, like, needy, like, requests.
Overtures.
To try to get friends. And it's pretty like overbearing and over the top, but that just seems to be the way that Konosuba characters are written.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So I'm fine with that. I mean, you don't quite learn from SPNatI like why she's like that, which I'd like to see, but you definitely get like what she's all about it right away. She always has something interesting to say.
I feel like Konosuba doesn't explain it really either. She just is.
It does, but I think the worry is it starts going into spoiler territory for people who want to read the light novels.
That's a really interesting, that's a really interesting conversation topic. Is like, what do you spoil in SPNatI? And to me, it's kind of like, well, if you play this character, you open yourself up for spoilers. Sorry.
Yeah, that's my input, but I know some people are a little.
I know there's some people who are like very, very much like, oh, well, I wanted to like, if I have not seen the show, your character should be like an ambassador for that show, and I'm sympathetic to that, but.
I don't really care about spoiling things about the character. If there's big spoilers about other characters, maybe don't do that.
Yeah, like it's fine to avoid plot spoilers, but I agree. I feel like things about the character that are revealed and throughout the show and whatnot, as long as it's not like, I was the bad guy all along, or something like that.
Yeah. It's really just how much does the character need that spoiler to function. Mm-hmm. And I guess you got to make that judgment call.
I think I'd have to kind of disagree with. I'd have to disagree with nmasp a little bit here. I totally kind of I side on the try not to spoil as best you can. I mean, even with Emmy, I kind of like. There's not really a whole lot to spoil with her route, but I tried to keep it mostly like you can play her in SPNatI, and then you can play her in Gatawa Shoujo and still be surprised and not just know what's going to happen. Because I figure a lot of people are not going to know who she is, and the biggest compliment I ever get is when someone says, hey, I want to play Gatawa Shoujo because I played your character. And I would really hate for them to play the game and be like, oh, well, I already know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I also think that it's like temporality is important. Like, you don't just say like, oh, by the way, we defeated X villain and things worked out just fine. Like, okay, you don't need to say that in like this friendly strip poker game. Just extrapolate as needed.
Yeah, but in short, you totally get what her deal is. She's very entertaining to like read all of her dialogue. She's got generally pretty good posing and like an attractive model and everything. The one thing I really like is that she doesn't stay exactly the same the whole game, or like she utilizes that neediness and that need for approval and trying to make friends, and she uses it to like have a sexual edge in like the forfeit. Like she plays that into her sexuality. Still, and getting like dirty fantasies and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's just a very smooth transition. But yeah, I like her. All right, so
cool. With
finally,
that, we have finally gone through the backlog.
It took like 5.5 hours, but we finally made it through all the main roster releases in 2020 and all the testing character releases. And now we have a little bit of extra time before nmasp has to bail on us once again. So we're going to go ahead and just try to have some general topics that we want to throw out there. So if you want to go ahead and introduce these, nmasp.
Yeah, so the first
you came up with them. All credit to you.
Well, that means if it gets fucked up, it's my fault too. So the first discussion topic for today is, besides your own projects and besides those of the other creators on this cast, because I find that, like, if we just say, like, what are the other things you like, we're all kind of inclined to be like, oh, yeah, I really like me and Megumin and Emmy, and that's great. And then let's all just reach to the right and just jerk. But, like, like seriously, that's like what always happens. So so this time, besides the characters of the creators on this cast, what are your top like 1 to 3 favorite characters, and justify yourself? So we did do a little bit of prequel here to make sure that we're not going to overlap too much, but let's just sort like ironically, let's go in a circle and start from number 1 and work our way back from there. Okay, Corky, you're first.
I'm gonna go with Komi-san, and I never, it's really exciting when you have a brand new character who just quickly becomes one of your favorites, and she's not just one of my favorite new characters; she's just one of my favorite characters in general.
Wipe Komi-san from all of us, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, basically. But what are tell us like, so for someone who's never played Komi-san, what are your kind of like compelling arguments for this character?
So she's going to give you something that no other character gives you. She's just totally, she stands on her own, just so separately apart from the rest of the roster. She's not only just like different in terms of how she presents herself, just because she doesn't speak. She is like all inner monologue, narration, and writing her stuff down. Like that stuff's cool, but on any other character that would be a gimmick. But Phonebox here like took that and just ran with it and just made it work so well. And the reason that we're always so quick to like praise him taking that risk and making that work is because it so rarely works. The only thing that concerns me about Komi-san is that a lot of newer developers might try to kind of capture the same lightning in the bottle sort of thing and think like, oh, well, I want to make my own Komi-san. I want to do something like really crazy and risky too. And, like I'd hate to like discourage somebody from doing that because, Phonebox almost didn't even put her on testing because he thought that like it was too risky. It was like, oh, I don't know if anyone will like this. Like he needed encouragement from the whole community to even like try putting her out there. And that's just nuts to me that she almost didn't even exist.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the thing. Like, there's a reason that it's a risk. There's a reason that it doesn't usually work. And like the fact that she did is like, that's why she's such a big deal because, taking something that everyone warns you not to do and making it work anyway, like that's just insane. And I can't give Phonebox enough credit for that. And it's not just the writing, it's the posing, it's just everything about her. I just love. And
I don't think anyone warned Phonebox not to make her.
No, but like generally, like if someone wanted to say, "Hey, I wanted to make a silent character,"
I think people were generally saying like, "I have no idea how they're going to pull that off" and stuff like that.
Right? Think about it. If someone said, "Hey, I want to make a new character," but they never speak, wouldn't you be like, "Yo, that's not a very good idea"? Like this whole game is about speaking. Like,
she is given a means to speak.
Right, but like we only know that it works because we've seen it and we've seen that it works. Like tell me before Komi-san that you can make a character that would be one of the best in the game that never speaks. Like you would never believe it would work.
Yeah.
And the fact that she just works so well and like not only did he did like the thing that's like almost impossible. He took what should have been a disadvantage for her and made it an advantage. He can write lines for her that don't work for anybody else. I can't write lines for Emmy that like describe what she's feeling and thinking, at least not in a way that seems natural. Yeah. So he took something that should have been a disadvantage and was like, well, how can I flip this on its head and make this work for me and make this work well?
She is imagining taking Hisao's lemon-scented cock into her rectum.
That's why I love her so much because I just, like a perfect example of taking adversity and just making it work for you. I just love everything about her. She's awesome, and just great job, Phonebox. I can't give enough compliments to how good she is.
What would you change or improve if you were writing her?
Oh fuck!
Wild card, bitches. Yeah, you can say nothing. Like nothing's fine. Like
no, that's not fun.
It's not fun, but it is fine. If you're a bitch,
I guess like. And maybe this is stupid. This is such a stupid thing, but I have to come up with something. But I guess like detailing like the jacket on her uniform, giving it wrinkles, but that's so unnecessary. That's just, I mean, this is kind of the guy who took it.
Emmy has wrinkles.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's the only thing really I can think about. I mean, when I play with her, like, I can't critique her dialogue. It's too good to critique it,
All right. Well, that was Corky's take on Komi-san. Wibbly, who do you got for us?
Alright, my first up is Tomoko.
Nice.
Mentioned earlier, very high on my list.
So why Tomoko? Sell us on Tomoko.
I am an odd one in that, but I don't think I'm alone in this. Even in a game like this, the one quality that I think I enjoyed the most is a character that can make me laugh. And there are a few characters that make me laugh nearly as much as Tomoko has in some of the times I've played with her. And I think it's interesting because it takes, like, that kind of, like, because we do have a few characters that are, awkward and whatnot, but, Tomoko is all about the fact that it's almost like a reflection of ourselves in a way. And it takes that and throws that at the other characters in, like, a way that's... And Tomoko's really crass, and just there's a bunch of stuff. It brings up interesting conversation topics you probably would never have seen the light of day otherwise, and just funny and stuff.
What would you change?
That is hard. I think I personally, although I get the reference and I think it works, and I know that I ended up in court using it for the joint forfeit. But I think I would have changed the forfeit because it makes it very difficult to kind of interact with other characters during that. But I don't think it was a mistake. It's just something I would have done differently if I was doing it.
How often do characters interact with others during their forfeit?
They do sometimes.
It depends on the character, I think. Because, like, I know I personally tend not to target other people's, like, masturbation dialogue just because it's, like... It almost feels like cheating because, like, if I make them talk to my character and they're not talking to each other about what they're doing, it almost takes you out of it. So that's kind of my feeling on that.
Yeah.
Hey, I see you stroking over there. Let's talk about your life dreams.
Basically.
Yeah, I try to not write too much targeted dialogue in the masturbation stage.
Oh, I don't write any, but, like, I was saying, it's kind of like sometimes when you're writing the character, sometimes you comment a bit even internally or mentally about things that are going on. I don't know.
Right.
It's
Do you mean like targeting without expecting a response back?
No. Like, I was talking about purely about what you're not throwing targets, but, like, you kind of what you have the character saying in the situations and whatnot. I don't know. Like, as I said, it's not something that's a flaw or anything that's wrong. I think it's still done and done well. It's just something I personally would have done differently, but that's only because I would have been afraid to probably do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm going to talk about Amy. I think Amy... it's like, there's a lot I could say about Amy, but ultimately it's just like, Amy's just, from conceptualization through execution, it's just like such a fucking, like, troll concept, but it was just done with such earnestness and, like, with such, like, direct appeal to someone. It's like, it's like if you had a character that was like a Nintendo, like, for instance, like, if you had, like, a Nintendo character that targeted, like, the Nintendo franchise to the point where it's like, if you weren't familiar with the sources, you're like, oh yeah, of course this character is from like Nintendo or whatever, and then just be like, wait, really? Like, I think there's some people who are like, oh, if I've never played DDLC, I just assumed that, like, Amy was Yuri or something like that. But I just think Amy's, like, dialogue is really well written. She's really, like, proactive with characters. She's really weird. Like, Amy says stuff, like, in the game that don't seem like it, like, infringes on other people's territory, and she just threads the needle in a lot of ways. I think, like, in some ways, like, Amy is an exercise in writing with writing by, like, obfuscation rather than subtlety, because she's, like, not a subtle character whatsoever, but she does, like, the things she needs to do in ways that, like, aren't overbearing or, needlessly bizarre. And there's just, like, so many layers to dissect with, like, okay, what's going on with this girl's perception of her own game? What's her interaction with her colleagues like? And a lot of the design decisions that drive her are things predicated on this idea that like, oh well, she's clearly not supposed to be there, so people aren't going to target her back, kind of thing. I don't know. I just think like Amy is just there for me. Like I really like this character. I have no complaints whatsoever. I don't know what like the things I would change is just like I don't know, maybe make it less obvious like what the things I'm into are, because that's just like it's just putting that on it's just putting that on blast, and I'm just like, oh okay, great. So that's kind of like, in order to like really appreciate it, you have to just like put all your weaknesses on display, and that like I feel very called out whenever I play it with Amy.
I just noticed.
What do you mean by infringe on other people's territory?
Well, you can't. There's this thing called the non-aggression principle, and you see, the goal is to not step on a snack. But no, just like Amy doesn't feel like she's just like kind of like needlessly stealing things from other characters. Like, I think there's always this risk with like OCs that you're just basically doing something that's been done before, but slightly differently. And Amy feels like she kind of treads unfamiliar ground in a lot of ways, which is nice. But
what do you mean familiar ground is just in terms of like familiar to
like
Doki Doki
or Doki Doki and SPNatI, because it's like someone made this comment in like the feedback poll about Amy that's just like, Amy is just like more annoying like Natsuki, and I'm like, don't think I agree with that, but I also think that it's like, I like, okay, there's like a lot of schoolgirl characters in the game, right? Like there's like a non-zero amount of them, but they're all like slightly different. And I think that she kind of does what she does sufficiently differently. I think there's also like a lot of like Dorothy from Valhalla in her dialogue that I kind of wonder about sometimes, but that's sort of what she's, that's sort of what she's there for. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just noticed this. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but like the little tufts of hair that are like hanging down on the sides of Amy's head above the braids, they kind of look like a spider's pincers.
Yeah, I think it was I think Thursdays and Napsu basically were like, yeah, there's like this base model that exists, we're just gonna do it better. And then they kind of did. And I think they kind of accentuated like the spideriness of that. But I definitely like looked at that and I'm like, is this intentional or is this just like really fortuitous accident? And I'd like to believe it's intentional, because I don't think Thursdays makes like accidents like that.
No.
So it's really there's just like a lot of cool stuff. So it's like so whenever we talk about like OCs and SPNatI, I think Amy really sets the standard. So it's like, oh, she's like only half OC, but it's like at the same time, it's like it would be like making like a My Hero Academia OC or something like that, right? Where it's like you have to like play by the, like for it to work and to really benefit from being part of a franchise, you have to play by that franchise's rules, right? You can't just show up and be like, oh, well, this is the rule set. Like you have to have something that people are familiar with, but still, and play within the bounds of that while also kind of doing something different to make that work. So I think it was just like a very technically difficult project, because it's like, who's gonna make who's gonna make an OC for SPNatI, and who's gonna like make an OC that is explicitly not what people wanted, and like,
and force you to want them anyway.
Right? Like who does, like why? Like it's just baffling. Anyway,
I mean, as someone who doesn't care about Doki Doki Literature Club, Amy's existence just, I mean, I like her just for the Schadenfreude.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
That anyway, alone justifies her existence in my eyes.
It's like imagine like writing 3,000 like Dorothy 3,000 lines for an OC, having like all the interactions that you could have done with like the character that people like asked for on a project you said you would do. It's like, I mean, fucking like
not to jinx or them or anything, but Yuri is actually in the works.
Well, for now.
And she has like actual poses now, which is already further than most people have gotten.
Yeah,
Amy is better than Yuri ever would have been. Honestly,
dude, I want to see what happens to Amy's play stats if Yuri gets released.
I think the win. Well, it's just kind of like I win or you lose. Just like it's just Amy's just going to target the shit out of Yuri, and then it's just.
It might be because to me Yuri is just Tomoko but less interesting. Maybe because I'm a Kitto Shoujo fanboy,
that
but
hurts.
I also just like, I think that the problem with like Amy in a lot of ways is like people don't really actually target her that much, which is like kind of appropriate, but it's still a little bit like you can play a game with like Natsuki and I think Sayori, maybe Monica, and they'll respond to her sometimes, but like that's kind of it. So I would hope that when if Yuri makes it into the game, that doesn't just kind of fall by the wayside. Anyway, that's my thought. That's my like TLDR on Amy. She good. Why don't do
TLDR, which I think you've spoken the longest out of all of us.
Yeah, don't do this. Don't try and emulate these results. They are not typical. Spnanon.
Yeah. So if we had to pick one character, I mean, there are a lot of characters that I really like for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could pick almost any of them, especially like towards the top of the roster, and have a good time with them. A lot of characters, I think they do one side of the spectrum really well, and then maybe another one isn't. You know, they don't short up quite as much. Like I could take a look at Nami, for instance, and like her art is amazing. I would pick her as like an example of like great, really sexy art. Dialogue, it's not like it's bad. It's just it's not particularly stand out to me. So I was looking for a character that I think hits both of those things pretty well in terms of like has a good sexual element, has like really fun, expressive, accurate posing and modeling, and like has really interesting dialogue. And I think my pick for this is going to be Saki N from or Saki Nikaidou from Zombieland Saga. I mean, there are a lot of characters I could have picked, but this is a character I could look at and say, you know, she really hits both sides of the spectrum here. I'm always interested in what she has to say. She has a lot of like interesting facets to her personality. She's pretty energetic and like bubbly, but she's like not afraid to argue with somebody. So she's got a lot of sides to her. She's just like a very fun presence on a table. She's got good epilogues, which I feel like this is going to sound really elitist, but I feel like a project's never really complete until they have an epilogue. I mean, that's just like it's just like the capstone that really seals off a project in my view. And I feel like people have like moved away from that almost, which is kind of sad.
It's largely because like epilogues have like risen the quality, but also it's a lot more effort now. It's like simultaneously easier to make them, but it's also like harder because the expectations are a lot higher. It's hard to get a lot of the assets in place and learn them all. So props to Solitaire for making that happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think she's perfect. If I had to nitpick her model's proportions, they're a little bit off, which is a shame because she has a lot of like custom poses that he worked very hard on. But it's more like I just think it's not like her head's too big, but it's like her torso is a little bit too long, which makes her legs look a little bit too short. And one thing that always makes like the female form a lot sexier is if like she has really long legs. So that would help her sex appeal a little bit. But overall, I always love putting her on a table. And like she's just as clever and fun as like Miko, his first project is, but she has the added value of she has a little bit more like sex appeal, and she's a lot more accessible in terms of like targeting her because she doesn't have someone always butting in like Miko does with Tojiko.
I'd love to put her on a table too.
Yeah, so Saki is just like a good choice all around. Like she hits all the beats pretty much. And there are some other characters I can name. I love a lot of the cast, but she's just a nice standout choice and a great addition. And it's great to have a new character that has epilogues.
I also think that it's like I'll kind of riff on that where it's like this is like for me it was easy, but admittedly like there's extenuating circumstances there. Like I'm not going to go on a podcast and be like, yeah, the character my wife made was not my favorite, right? Like there's a lot of really, really, really good characters in the game, and the only way you'll kind of find them is just by trying them all. Listen, if you don't know, nmasp is literally recording this in his closet right now, so I think he's definitely trying to curry some favor with his wife. Well, we have a guest over, so otherwise it would be. Anyway. Otherwise, he'd be recording this on the couch naked. It's true, jerking off while I do it.
Yeah.
Don't judge me.
I have to say, yeah, I agree with all that stuff with Saki, and she's just kind of, I don't know. I like Solitaire's taste in the kind of punk troublemaker thing. And those characters can be fun. Sorry, I wasn't really going anywhere super serious with that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
that's
sorry, I was just typing something.
yeah, that's good. I mean, hey, so spnanon is written the forbidden words of Amy, not school dual forfeit, and I'm like, I'm there for it. It just hex and underscore, like, no.
If she's supposed to be the mirror image of her, then really it's just masturbation.
Yeah.
What if Natsuki just like reabsorbs Amy? She goes all Eldritch Abomination.
Hey,
and just,
congrats! It's just like you just wanted like two cute girls to jerk each other off. Well, you get unbirthing. Yeah, here you go.
Yeah,
this is what
horror.
you get.
no, it's like it's like when Piccolo and Kami refused in Dragon Ball Z and they became the original Namek again.
Super Piccolo. Yeah, I mean, I would just like if it were in my power, I would do like a dual epilogue or a dual forfeit for like Natsuki and Amy, just because like with Adrian and Marinette, like that's hard to do because like I'm firmly of the belief that like anything I can come up with will be eclipsed by whatever your imagination is, but I think that one would be just like quite a bit of fun to arrive at. But anyway, yeah, I am unfortunately kind of coming to the end of my time for this week.
You want to close us out on your tips and stuff, and then the rest of us can finish up real quick with that?
Sure. What kind of tips in regards to what?
Just the stuff we were talking about.
Quick.
Yeah, I think just general tips, I guess, to play the role of Monica is, I think the really, really biggest piece of advice I could give everyone is like, know who your character is for, and then ignore everyone else. Like, I know that sounds contradictory, but like really the way you make a successful character is like really go hard at what they're supposed to do, because honestly, there are characters with thousands of lines. There's characters who've like routinely done well. There's characters with more popularity than the character you want. But like, your goal with this project is to make people really, really like the project that you put out, not the project it could have been. And in kind of service to that, that's like the kind of project design is like really think about what you're doing from the get-go and why you want to be doing it. And I think you'll be able to finish a lot easier. The second piece of advice is just keep a consistent work schedule. Like I'm terrible at this. Like this year has been really bad for me doing production on the characters that I'm working on. But I do think like if you can just set aside like 20 minutes to 20 minutes a day to just write whatever comes to mind, I think you'll get there. And if you try and just wait for inspiration to strike, it doesn't happen. Inspiration's when you write your good lines, but you do need to write the others too.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm also more of like a writer than an artist by like an extreme margin. So that's just my advice. The other thing is like get me to like your character, and I'm going to target the shit out of you with whatever I have. That's all I got. Thanks for listening, and
thank you so much.
What's some other advice from Wibbly, spnanon, and Corky to close out?
So yeah, first off, I was going to say, so in regards to when you're making your character, things that you can do that can really help make people like really kind of want to target them and things like that. Of course, this is going to be very subjective because this is from my perspective, but I'd say that first off is the number one thing is to make sure to kind of set up your character up in a way that makes conversations kind of easy and makes it easy to respond and initiate conversations. And what I mean by that is kind of like, you can have, I've mentioned this before, but you can have like kind of, gimmicks that are interesting, but you can also have gimmicks that end up getting in the way of your ability to have like a consistent conversation or can interrupt things. A good example of a gimmick is like streaming Chan's like interviews or her kind of like viewer count thing. Those are interesting things that don't really impede they actually help stimulate conversation. But and negative examples of that would be kind of like you could see characters that have like, you know, other characters popping in and saying stuff, or characters, and like, not saying that that's a bad thing, but it does make it harder for people, because then and suddenly, instead of the normal conversation they were planning, or they wanted the things they wanted to ask for that stage, they kind of suddenly have to acknowledge every single time that happens that this is happening, and kind of can make the reactions kind of samey for a stage. The other things I would say are you don't have to be writing targets every day or anything like that, but if you I recommend like if you sit down and you just for like a short period of time and just kind of work on targets. Just don't, rather than spreading yourself thin, unless you work better that way, rather than spreading yourself thin with a bunch of different characters, like, you know, pick a character you want to target, kind of sit down, and in like a short series of goes, kind of clank some stuff out with the creator when they have free time. I know sometimes people can work fine over the long run, but I feel like more often than not, the longer things get dragged out, the more people kind of forget, or, you know, things will kind of become more difficult at times. And sometimes you'll have to wait a while before you start doing targets, but kind of when you get that opportunity, take advantage of that. And then the last two things I'd say is talking to the person beforehand about interacting with the character. When you sometimes talking with the person about their character, you can help get ideas for the character and interactions you have never thought of before that can be like 10 times more interesting. And when you show interest in the other person's character like that, it really makes them feel like good, and it encourages them to want to target back as well. So that's
for sure.
Big thing. Yeah. And so definitely do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to plan out entire conversations ahead of time. You can if it works for you, but just, you know, even just talking about it. And then I guess the final thing is, I'd say, kind of assertiveness. This is something I need to be better about. So I'm not saying I'm the epitome of this, but when you have someone you want to target, you know, be assertive about talking to that creator about that you want to, you know, target the character. And then, like, if the creator forgets or something like that, don't be scared to be like, hey, just check in, like, you know, is everything...
Yeah,
like,
I really recommend this, just because, like, people get busy, and I know I'm really guilty. I'm really guilty of this. So it's like someone's like, oh my god, like, does this person ignore me? It's like, it's not that I, like, forgot because I don't care. It's that I usually just, like, it's a hobby. Please just ask me again.
Yeah, and we have a lot of stuff going on. And
yeah, just ask anyone again. Yeah.
Make yourself easy to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if someone has an idea, like, try to go along with it. Or if someone has, like, a way of doing things, like, try to compromise between you.
Yeah.
Learn from improv. Yes, and.
But yeah, my final piece of advice, just, like,
but
don't...
Corky, improv comedy sucks.
Oh, shut up. You're just not good at it. It's not anyone else's fault.
Hey, I actually used to be an improv person.
What is this podcast but
it.
just, like, extended improv comedy?
You know who else is good in improv comedy? If I may. Shout out to him and Yusuke. Really excited.
Yeah, he's real good at that.
I don't know what the relationship is there.
He makes, like, Yusuke and some other stuff. Nice guy.
But yeah, I guess just final note, just closing off and hitting that point home. Just don't be afraid about bothering people. You know, like, you don't want to be, like, you know, pestering people, like, over and over again, like, hey, like, checking in every second. But, like, we're all here for the hobby. Like, the most annoying thing it's going to be is I check a notification, like, sorry, I'm still busy. You know, like, it's no big deal.
So I typically do both the writing and the art for my characters, and I say plural as if I make two.
Now we shall all bow down to you.
No.
Corky, you only
I
made
think-
half of one character.
What?
God.
Still got to finish the legs.
Fuck! No! I can't believe I didn't get that. Fuck. Anyway, yeah. So I've got one on the roster. Got one coming up, hopefully soon. And doing the same thing, doing both art, doing and the writing.
Yeah, worst girl from Evangelion.
So yeah, also from Best Girl. Excuse me. I think
Evangelion.
I think the word you're searching for is Best Girl. Anyway, so I'm
Just
gonna
go
give.
with fucking Ramio.
I mean, I'm so
Romeo.
waiting for the
What?
Natsuki Asuka dialogue.
Ramio is the big like geometric like rhombus girl or
Yeah.
angel
Oh,
who like shoots
it's
a
not even
laser.
girl.
Natsuki Yasuko would be great.
It's the one that
God.
that Shinji had to snipe with the rifle that took all the power from Japan.
Put a pyramid in the game. I want to jerk off to a big triangle. Anyway, so I'm gonna
Anyway,
give
it literally is the best angel because it's the one that Ray smiled after killing.
Oh, spnanon. Are you done?
We're done interrupting you. You may proceed.
Okay. All right, let's go. So I'm going to give one big thing of advice, basically something I wish somebody had told me when I started for writing and for art. So starting with art, I would say, I'm the guy that really likes to make the one-to-one thing. Like I take my reference and I try to match it as close as I can. But my advice is that sometimes matching your reference perfectly isn't the best way to go, because you have to remember that we're dealing with Kisuke here. It's not just drawing the character and putting them in SPNatI. So you have to translate your character to the engine. And what that means, think of it as like drawing your best friend, but you want to draw them in the style of Fairly Odd Parents or something like that. So if you're drawing them like a Fairly Odd Parent character, you're not going to just, you're not going to go one-to-one. You have to match the style. You got to kind of look at them, like see the shapes that make up their face, see like what features of them make them look like them. Caricature artists are really good at this. You got to kind of analyze them and really study what makes them look like them. And that's what makes you good at doing Kisuke stuff. I think Mouse and Beta are both very good at doing this. They have their own style of Kisuke. They make characters that still look like the character, but they don't do one-to-one models, if you notice. Like, look at their stuff. They usually don't look exactly like their reference. They take who they're making and they make it their own. And they do that because they have a good understanding of what makes the character look like that character.
Can I actually really quickly add something to that? I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because that reminded me of the one thing I really wanted to say, especially when we were talking about Pyrrha, is that in the same vein, rather than matching the reference completely, when it comes to writing, like you can have the character take place like a couple years later, maybe after, like in the case of Pyrrha, maybe after they're no longer as self-conscious about the whole tournament thing. That way you can have them talk about stuff like that more, but not like changing the character up too much. So like things are a bit flexible. You can get creative with that stuff in order to kind of flesh out the best parts of a character. Anyway, continue.
Mm-hmm. That's a good insight. Sometimes it is good to kind of let your character grow a little bit more before you kind of delve into SPNatI writing. Anyway, we'll get to writing. Right now, like real quick with just to kind of finish up on the art. But I do think that's, Pyrrha is a good example of that, where, they've done a really good job at matching, the reference art they're using, putting that in Kisuke, but the problem is it still doesn't look quite as appealing as the old model. And as I've said, the old model didn't really look a lot, it didn't look exactly like Pyrrha from Ruby, is she from? Is that correct?
Yeah.
But she just looks more appealing.
Really detailing on her hair.
Yeah. So like, even though she's got some defaulty features, she just looks more appealing. And if we were gonna go if we were gonna keep going on the favorite character route, my second character was gonna be a hot take. It was gonna be Kim Possible.
Ugh.
And even though she is a really old, outdated character, she's got a lot of big problems that don't hold up today. But I think she's a really good example. This is where I was gonna kind of why I was gonna throw her in, because her model doesn't look really anything like. If you watch Kim Possible and then you play her in SPNatI, the two characters are completely different styles. But you look at that model, even though it's from like 2017, it's dated, I know that. But if you kind of just like put yourself back into the standard of that era of the game, I think they did a really good job of capturing her features, making her look. She looks cute. Yeah, she looks a little bit default, but back then every character did. They did a really good job of capturing what made Kim possible. And I think that's something to keep in mind. And something I'm trying to do with Asuka. I'm doing it a little bit of like mixing different references together. Sometimes I have to abandon what my reference gives me to make it look good in SPNatI. Sometimes it's just because I can't make this shape in SPNatI. I got to make it look good this way. But just on a more general sense, it's not easy to tell you, just get your own style and be good at art. But being good at art, in general, really helps. And maybe that doesn't help you as a new developer, but I will say that studying other kinds of art always helps you with what you want to do. Like a good way to grow, if you're interested in getting better at whatever medium you're passionate about, and if you feel stuck, it can help to try other mediums. Let's say you're a cartoonist and you like drawing with markers. Try drawing with pastels. Try drawing with charcoal. Try sculpting with clay. And you might think, well, that's not the kind of medium I like to work with. I like drawing with markers. Well, once you start working with other mediums, it kind of forces you to focus on the fundamentals. It forces you to focus on like the perspective and like how to break down the shapes and everything. That's really important for Kisuke, by the way. It really all comes down to breaking down the basic shapes and working from there. So working with other mediums can really help you with the medium you're working on. I can't, understate how many times like I've worked with a medium I'm uncomfortable with. You leave your comfort zone. And you just kind of learn a lot more about what you're doing, like that you never expect. Like sometimes you learn like, even though I'm drawing with chalk, I don't like drawing with chalk, but this has kind of taught me like, hey, here's a limitation I had to overcome. And I did this and it taught me a new thing. Anyway.
Yeah, I had to start learning liquid latex recently, and that's been interesting.
Yeah. So whenever you're doing art, I mean, this goes to anything in life too, but especially with art. If you feel like if you don't feel comfortable doing one kind of thing, that's kind of a compass showing you where you need to grow. So if there's a medium that you're like, gosh, I don't know if I can do that, fucking do it, and you'll find that you're better at it than you're gonna than you give yourself credit for, and it's gonna make you better. Even if you try it and it sucks, you're gonna learn from it. And the best attitude to take with that is rather than thinking, I might fail at it might not work the way I want to. Take it as a challenge. Take it as like, kind of like trying to get an achievement in a video game. If you just kind of like try to morph your attitude towards it, you're going to have a lot more fun. So real quick, I feel like I spent way too much time talking about this, so I'm going to move on this real quickly. Here's writing advice that I totally stole from SPNanon when it comes to writing new characters that I wish somebody had told me when I started, is to not take the damn character editor suggestion for its word. When it tells you this is what your character says when so-and-so is taking off their shoes, you don't have to talk about so-and-so taking off their shoes. Think about what is interesting when you're playing SPNatI. Do you like Amy talking about spiders, or do you like Amy saying, you're taking off your shoes? Every character can say that. There's only so many ways you can talk about accessories being taken off, or how good or bad your hand is. That's not why we play the game. We want to know what your character is about.
That's the one-way ticket to making your character really boring.
Yeah, exactly. So, feel free to just like fuck whatever the case you're writing for. Just talk about your own character. Unless it's like a major thing where like, if someone's taking off their underwear, you don't want to be talking about what your best friend did back on that one time you threw a football over the rainbow or whatever.
You can still do that to a degree. It depends. It's okay to be a little casual sometimes.
Yeah, but for big things, you want to maybe,
yeah,
right. And this is where filtered line comes into play too. So, for example, like when someone's taking off something big, it's better if your character is saying something that's more indicative of who they're talking about. So, if they're talking, Emmy, for example, speaks differently to people who have like athletic personalities, as opposed to somebody who is like a shut-in. And I think nmasp does this really well with his characters. Everyone says that nmasp does filtered lines really well, and there's a reason, because he spends a lot of time on it. And filtered lines, I think, are really underrated. Everyone talks about targets, but filtered lines are basically a way to make generics not so generic. It's really hard to write a line that can apply to everything. So don't force yourself to. Use filters to your advantage.
Yeah, do filters. And also, filters exist when you're done. Like, filters exist after you're done. Like, targeted lines exist while you're, like, writing for the game, but, like, filters last forever.
I am ashamed to say that it never occurred to me to use filtered lines on a larger scale to tailor the generic dialogue to the filter. Jesus, this has blew my mind. Okay. I know what I'm going to do when I revisit generics.
Yeah. I need to do more of that, especially like targeting the specific clothing that they're taking off.
Oh yeah.
Like targeting the size of clothing they have, like the accessories, that's really hard to make something that applies to everything. Saying specifically like their socks, that's easy. Now you have context.
Yeah. Give yourself a little bit more room to actually talk about what's going on. You know, it's really hard to make dialogue. Generics, the reason generics are so difficult is because they have to be so versatile. You know, it's really hard to take a situation that can be so flexible, like, oh, someone's taking off this. You don't know what's being taken off. So it's really hard for your character to show who they are with something that's happening that is completely out of your control as a developer. So, you know, one option to take is to go with filtered lines and basically shrink the constraints so you have more control over what's happening. Or you can take the spnanon approach, completely ignore what's happening, and just use it as an opportunity to talk about, to basically teach dummies like me who don't know who your character is. It's a good opportunity for you to show me who your character is. Like, you know, because I don't really care what Pyrrha says about Emmy taking off her like ribbon bow thing. It doesn't matter. I'd rather like hear what Pyrrha has to say about her own thing. Maybe maybe it could kind of come across as her like not paying attention to what's happening. But you know what? And like my favorite advice that spnanon gave. This is a recent thing that spnanon starts talking about, and I'm going to start doing it. Watch like videos or even play the game. Watch the original Poker Night at the Inventory with like the Heavy and GLaDOS and all the other characters in there. Watch how they speak to each other. They're not going to talk about like, oh, you just raised your bet. Like they just kind of shoot the shit with each other. Like watch that. Like notice how natural it seems. Kind of, you know, just loosen up a little bit. You don't have to like. When I first started developing, I got so stressed out because I would get stuck on these generics. Like fuck, like. How do I make Emmy like talk about this one super weird, specific, boring situation, but still make her sound like Emmy? When in reality, I didn't have to. I just had to make her say anything that Emmy would talk about. And you know, I just wish I would
just literally bring up conversation topics that are relevant to your character.
Or you don't even have to, and you don't have to bring something up. Like Arash, like kind of takes this too far. He just like asks open-ended questions, which is fine, but you don't have to ask questions. You can just have your character just start talking about something. You know, like just make something that's interesting to read. Yeah,
like in the original Poker Night, you'll see like, I mean, part of it is because you don't want to talk about your hand in poker, but you'll just see it like circle around like whose turn it is. They'll just they'll tap on the table to show that they check. They don't say anything about it, and then it gets to the end. And it's like Tycho, and he just goes on some rant about how he has a sexual interest in giraffes. That's like a real line.
Yeah.
Play poker with your friends. Notice how you're not talking about your hands. You're just talking about what's going on in your life and everything.
Yeah.
I want to give the Mad Lad suggestion also, and rather do filtered lines so that every article accessory that someone takes off is referred to as a trinket, just to infuriate that one guy in bug reports.
What is this about?
Don't actually do that. You don't know that? There's like these bug reports that I guess a lot of characters have been getting, and it's like get randomly, and it's like for a long time, I guess. And whenever a character uses the phrase trinket, it's because they're using the word incorrectly or something. He gets really mad in the bug reports.
There's like a few like kind of memes from bug reporting, but I don't know.
A lot of people like to roleplay with them. I've never seen that with Emmy, so maybe people don't like to roleplay with women who don't have legs. I don't know.
It's well, you got to be into amputees. That's already a small niche.
Yeah.
Okay, but going back to like the hand lines for a second, or like good generic lines. I guess it's my turn now. But just close your eyes and just picture them like sitting at a poker table, just kind of leaning back on the chair. What are they going to talk about? You know, they're just kind of looking around, trying to make conversation. Like, that's how you got to picture it. If you don't, you got, like, that's the context that you're supposed to be writing in. It has to be very natural sounding dialogue. That's why I don't like characters that sound like they have really, like, canned dialogue that they could say in almost any other context.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Can
not,
you elaborate on canned?
it's something like taking, like, lifting a direct quote from the game or like the anime that they're from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, or like their character, like when their quote when you like choose a character on like their select screen or something.
I think that enemy got to the point.
Yeah, it's like character removing major. It's like, let's hit the shot, and it's like, what the fuck? Who says that?
I think that character got the point.
Oh my god. ProZD.
Okay, yeah, they're posting chibi Ruby memes, but people are always excited about interacting with other characters, which is good. But when you're writing your character, here's the dirty little secret: targets will not save them. Targets are completely worthless if they don't put them with that other character that they're targeting.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be lazy with your generic lines.
Yeah.
They are your bread and butter. Oftentimes they are all you have. They have to be good, or your character will be boring. And it's like, you know, really drive home the conversation aspects for like the boring early rounds when they're taking off shoes and nobody cares. That's when you need to, you know, build up a rapport and teach them about your character. Then when like the sex stuff starts coming out and like nudity reveals, really don't, you know, leave the conversation behind a little bit, really drive home like the sexuality stuff.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go down that path. Like, you have to, they're people, they have a sexuality. Like, it's okay to flirt a little bit, just don't be fucking obnoxious about it.
All right. Well, with this all being said,
You have to leave us.
I do have to leave, but hey,
right,
it was
well.
great being on the cast as ever. You know, see you all in about 2 weeks. Given that we've worked our way through the backlog finally, we can start moving on to interesting discussion topics. Compared to the previous format of the cast, this one will be less of
Just round after round of characters.
yeah, also like less crowdsourced questions. We'll have some topics going in, and we'll kind of pick and choose people we think would be interesting to hear talk on things. All right, folks. This is nmasp signing out. Adrian Marinette soon-ish, which I'm going to probably say through the end of the year.
I'm spnanon, your other host. Our two guests, please say your farewells.
I'm WibblyWarble. Warble and Wibbly on. Or do that Wibbly. I don't know.
I'm just a little prickly desert plant. Have a good evening.
All right. So long. Good night and good luck.
Farewell.